Hi, I'm Danielle with Stitch and Designs. Welcome back to my channel. Today's tutorial we're going to be going over this ITA window. So ITA is, as far as I know, is a Japanese term for just like a clear window. If you wanted to, you could put like a little pin board inside of it, and it's just a way for people to be able to showcase their pin collection or other collectible items inside of a bag without worrying that they're going to fall off and they're going to potentially lose them. So it's just kind of a little fun thing, and so I'm going to call it the Spooky School. So the Spooky School window design as a ITA pocket. So this backpack, this will become a backpack. It is the Linsport mini backpack, and I did a modification to the front of it. I still need to add my magnet. I kind of didn't think about it when I was doing it, but it has a nice slip back on the front, and then it's got the zippered ITA pocket. So we're going to be going over in today's tutorial how to do the modified front. I'm not going to demonstrate how to make the actual backpack itself. There's a lot of amazing tutorials. Lindsay does one herself on these, of course. So just the modified front, I will give the measurements out as we go. But so here's the cute little window, and then we'll go over how to add, of course, the interior, and then a little bit about the stuff you will need. This is just regular cotton woven. You can use cotton canvas. Vinyl might be a little thick for how many layers there are, but you could potentially use vinyl for the outer layer, and then just be cautious of all the extra inner layers you need. So on mine, on my outside, I have cotton woven, and then just it's interfaced with just SF101. And then on the inside, you're gonna need something on the back of the pocket, if I can turn it, that won't fray. So on the inside of mine, I have waterproof canvas or water resistant canvas, either one, but your inside, the back side of your little window has to have something that's not going to fray on it. And then the inside pocket, this is just cotton woven that I just got from like Joann's or something, and then I used it as a coordinate. It is from Fabric Therapy, and it works perfect for this design, and I absolutely love their waterproof canvas for it. This fun little like green sheeny zipper is the villain tape from Dream Big Creations. I thought I would just add like a little fun little pop of, well, again, you got the color there, but it is like a little fun little detail to it. So hopefully I have enough of that left and I can use it for this next one. But so this is what we're going to be working on. And let's go ahead. So make sure you grab, you're going to be needing your embroidery hoop, so that you're going to be do the 5x7. There will be larger sizes, but for today I'm just going to be doing the 5x7, so that way it fits into this front pocket. So grab your hoop, your stabilizer. I'm using tearaway today, and then you're going to want to grab your front piece of material, and then we'll get going. I already have my tearaway stabilizer already hooped and ready to go it's in my 5x7, and I'm being brave. I'm going to try using striped fabric for the front of this. So I'm going to have to be really careful about making sure that my front stripe lines up with the center line of the window design. So I'm go big or go home, right? So to be able to help myself find the center, I'm marking on your hoop, whether you're using a multi-needle hoop or a single needle hoop, they have markers or indicators for the center of your hoop. So I'm just taking my ruler, marking the center. And then the other thing you want to do on the back of we'll figure out which one's your front, which one's your back. Let's go with this as the back. Sure. And because mine has stripes already, I'm just going to go based on the stripes. But if your fabric or material, I'll just use this one as the example. So I'm going to do the wrong side of the waterproof canvas or water resistant canvas. So because we're doing embroidery on it, and you want to be able to, like I'm doing stripes, so I cut mine a lot larger than it needs, not a lot, but larger than it needs to be, so I can kind of have a little bit of a wiggle room. But you're going to need to have your front piece, and your front piece, if you're doing the window, make it bigger than what it needs to be, because then you can always trim down. But the minimum you want to have it is 6 3/4 inch tall by 10.5 inches wide. So again, it's 10.5 inches wide by 6 3/4 inch tall. So if you are using directional print, I make sure to tell you which one's the tall, which one's the wide, because I always get confused when they just give me measurements. So you want if you're gonna do an ITA window, make it larger than that, so that you have a little bit of wiggle room on your embroidery. But if you're not doing the embroidery side, then just use those measurements to make your window. And then you're also going to need the same size in waterproof, water-resistant canvas, or something that's not going to fray. I don't recommend using vinyl, something thinner. So the water-resistant, waterproof canvas is like perfect for the inside of the pocket. So just to kind of show what I mean by finding center, you can, I don't want to necessarily crease this, but I can notch. Go a little bit bigger of a notch. So then you can take your notch, and I kind of creased it a little bit, but it's not too bad. And then mark your middle. And so I'm demonstrating this part to help you, to show you if you're going to do stripes, or if you want to line up your fabric a little bit better for position wise. I'm demonstrating how to do it on this. Because I have stripes, I don't really need to do it as much, because there's stripes on both, on the front and the back. So you can spray your stabilizer. I'm using, it's a 505 temporary spray. It doesn't matter the brand, as long as it's temporary. You don't want to use an actual adhesive spray, because it could potentially damage your hoop, or not your hoop, but your machine. And just to kind of, I didn't really crease it too hard, but just to kind of give it a little bit of an idea of where the true middle is. And so I'll do it this direction so you guys can see what I'm doing. So I have the line in the middle of my hoop, and then I have the line in the middle of the back of my design. And then if I was putting this one down already, I would spray it down, so that way it kind of helps hold it in place, makes life a little bit easier. And so you're just wanting to line up that line there with that line, and then lift up the other side. Make sure you're hold the finger down so it doesn't shift. And then you're just lining it up from the fabric to the line on your stabilizer. This will really help figure out exactly where your center is on your hoop, center on your fabric. And so if you are doing a design that needs it, then you're good. And if you don't have directional print, or like on my first one, it was just open fabric, and so I just kind of generally centered it into the design, and it was larger than what it needed to be. So then when I was able to finagle and get it centered, I could cut it down to what I needed to. So that one wasn't really needed to do all this extra stuff. And then from there, because you have the 505 spray down, you're going to want to grab some pins. If you are using vinyl, you're going to want to skip the pins and just go with masking tape. But since my fabric that I am using, I can put pins through it, so it's not that big of a deal. And then just go around on the outer edge, pinning your fabric down. And I will do that now with mine. Which one's the front? Which one's the back? Sure, we'll go with this one. And since my stripes are already there, put my spray. And I'm going to go with the center of, between the gray. Let's figure out kind of where the middle-ish is. I'm going to have an idea of where the middle, kind of middle-ish is. And roll that up. Make sure it follows the bottom. And then I'm just going to place my pins. Then you want to make sure you're placing your pins as high up against your hoop, especially if you're going in the middle. Oh, totally just stabbed myself into your blood. Yay. So be careful when you're pinning your material down. I'm probably going to remove that one in the center, just because I can't remember, like, I don't want it to actually accidentally get hit. It's just there to help hold my fabric in place, especially because I'm trying to keep it at center. And then this one will just be there to help hold my centers, and then I can continue pinning. And again, if you're using a vinyl for this on the front, if you're doing any kind of ITA window or window design for embroidery and you're using vinyl as your front, you're not going to be able to use your pin, so make sure you're being generous with your masking tape holding it down. Those two just because I can't remember how high up it goes, and that one might need to get repositioned. I'm going to put one over here. Okay, so that looks like it's ready. We're ready to go over to the embroidery machine. If you have a machine that has a built-in camera, you can scan your fabric just to make sure that your design and your center placement of what you want to be your center are lined up. My brother 10 needle has a built-in camera, so I can use that. My 6 needle one has just like a little red dot line, so if I do put the red dot in the center and then just run it up and down for the top and the bottom and then the center, making sure that it's truly on the line of where I want my center to be. And then if it's not, then I can kind of rotate the design within the machine itself that way, so that way it makes sure that I get it lined up properly. So let's go ahead and put this into the machine and we'll get started. I got a little ahead of myself. So before we jump over there, we're gonna add the backing. So this is really important to make sure that you add your back material on the back of the hoop. And then the hoop kind of does, like mine has like little random circles or whatever on it. And it doesn't have to be like perfectly centered, but you want it, especially you want to have your back be even a little bit bigger than your front piece, because then you have a little bit more wiggle room. So if you accidentally set it off a little bit more to the one side than the other, you have room to be able to center this whole thing onto your backpack or your bag or whatever project you're working with. And then, because if this was the exact same size and you had it shifted, this side will be longer, and then yeah, things don't always line up. So you can use your your temporary spray on the back as well. So once you've added your 505, after you add your 505 spray to the back, I'm just going to use some masking tape. There's not a ton of areas to be able to, you could wrap it up, but mine's larger than the hoop, so I'm just going to kind of press it down along the sides of the hoop. There we go. All right. And this will just kind of help hold it in place while it's going around. Okay, so we've got a nice smooth working surface. Everything is pinned, looks good. All right, let's go over to the hoop, or let's go over to the machine. When you go to slide in your hoop, make sure that you're putting a hand on the back, so that way you accidentally don't catch your back material and pull it down, and then it gets caught underneath here and folded and gets all wrinkled. So make sure that's out nicely. All right, so I'm gonna use my camera, built-in camera on this one, just to make sure that I have my placement correctly. Might help if I put those in. Okay, here we go. Yeah, I was a little off. I think my initial line that I drew on the stabilizer was a little off center, so I'm glad I double checked that. Okay, so its first step that it's going to do is going to stitch out the placement for where you're going to cut, and you're going to then do for the what would be for the clear vinyl. On this placement, I purposely did it in purple so that way it would show up better. Otherwise, I could have done just black, but you wouldn't have been able to see it as well. So at this point, we have our placement line for where the clear vinyl is going to get laid down. But we need to make an X if you want to save your middle material to be able to use it for another applique or whatever you want to use it for. I recommend making like a little cut alongside the circle. It doesn't have to be in all 4 areas, just like one area that has a cut. You want to cut through your front and your back piece, and then we'll lay down our clear vinyl. But if you don't really care about saving your middle material, just make a big cut with your rotary blade or some scissors, like hold it up and like make a little poke with like a seam ripper or something like that, and then you can, or like your little, take snips or scissors, make a little poke through it, and then you can cut and make an X. You don't necessarily want to go all the way to the edge because you want to keep it somewhat stable for when you put when it stitches a clear vinyl down. But yeah, an X nonetheless, just that way it allows you to cut it easier after we put the clear vinyl down. I took my hoop over to my cutting mat and I used my rotary blade, and as you can tell, or you can see, it's cut all the way through the back and the front. So now I want to grab so go ahead and grab your clear piece of vinyl. You want to ensure that the piece of vinyl that you cut for it covers the entire circle completely. It doesn't have to be extending over by a ton, but you want to make sure that it is extending over your lines, and then you have enough that you can be able to cut. And then take your masking tape, and then you're going to tape your clear vinyl down. And then if it does, because mine is rolled up, it kind of wants to curl on me, you can use more tape, good. Okay. So now my clear vinyl is taped down on all sides, and I'm going to put it back into the machine. Just make sure when you do put it back, you put your hand underneath to be able to catch that your waterproof canvas or water resistant canvas on the back side, so it doesn't get folded or kind of tucked under, because that's the last thing you want to do is accidentally stitch down the back, like folded it under. I've done it. So now we're going to go ahead and run the second step, which is the tack down of the clear vinyl. The tack down is now finished, so we can pull our hoop out. Go ahead and pull off the masking tape. And then, so what we're going to do now is we're going to cut around your clear vinyl around where you tack down. I'm going to be using my applique scissors that I got from Chic Geek. I absolutely love these things. I have noticed that when I'm doing applique designs, using applique scissors, I've noticed a big difference in my cutting. It is improved. If I don't use my applique scissors, I have a bunch of scissors. I have some that are meant for only vinyl, so I only cut vinyl with them. And then I have stabilizer vinyl, so I only cut the stabilizer with it. And then I have fabric scissors, which, enough said that I only cut fabric material with it. That way it keeps those blades as sharp as possible and doesn't dull them out by cutting through all the different types of materials. But if I don't use my applique scissors, I will use my vinyl scissors. And so as I'm going around, you might be able to see I am using my opposite hand and I am lifting the material. So it's pulling it up and out of the way, because you don't want to angle your scissors downward. You want to kind of go alongside, because if you angle downward, you could accidentally poke through your material and then start cutting your material, which you definitely don't want to do that, because honestly, I don't know how to fix that unless you want to hand stitch a little hole closed. But lifting it up out of your way, you can get underneath and get good clean cuts. Because it is a nice even circle, you can use or cut further back on your scissors. If you're working in smaller details, you would tend to cut more towards the front. So I can slide it back and I can get nice long even cuts. And then the nice part about clear vinyl, if you get it at the right spot, you could just slide it around, which is always nice. Nope. And I am at the end already. So next we're going to take I'm going to go back over to my cut table, and I'm going to, it's because the materials are a little bit thicker, so you're cutting through the waterproof canvas, the the cut tearaway, and then also your front material. So I'm going to take this over and just go around the inside again, just like you did with the clear vinyl, lifting your material up and out of the way. So, and if you need to, which I will be doing too, cut one layer at a time, and then you can peel back the tearaway, which is the nice part about using the tearaway. Or if you want to cut it, you're more than welcome to. If you did use cutaway, you're just going to cut it, so no big deal. And then just cut each layer around the circle, making sure that you get nice and close to the lines, but you do not want to cut your thread. And then if you want to, I recommend trimming up the little frills on the sides, because if you got a long thread, when we go to do the cover over the clear vinyl, this could potentially be seen on the inside, so we want to limit all of that. Okay, and I'll be right back. The window's all cut out, so this is what you'll be left with. So it's gonna be it's fun to look through and watch the stitching happen when you have the clear window. So it's cut nice and close. I might have missed a little piece right there. I'm gonna trim that now that I see it. Alright. And if you have a little, some fuzzy stuff on the back of the window, it's not that big of a deal because the back will be open. But you want to kind of get rid of the extra gunk because you don't want to accidentally stitch it down to your design. And then again, as you're putting your hoop back into the machine, make sure that your back material isn't getting caught underneath. So the next part will be stitching out the pretty window design itself, and then we'll pause and then we'll add the last part. With the window design itself all finished, we're going to pull the hoop out, and it does line up. Yay! Alright, so now we're going to take our last piece that we're going to need for it, and it's going to be I guess a window cover, for lack of a better term. And so you want to make sure that the piece that you use, I'm just going to using something kind of like dragon scales, little fun. This piece you want to make sure is larger than the design itself. Because if you make it to the size, you could miss the outer because it will stitch on the outside of the placement and to the inside. So you want to make sure that it completely covers it all the way around. Oh, and before I forget, when you flip your hoop over, I'm going to grab my snips. Because it has the start and stop, you just want to go ahead and just take this time to trim up the long loose threads on the back. Just because potentially if it gets stitched down, it might be a little bit harder to trim it away a little bit later. And then just quick little lighter action. All right, that should be good. Okay. And then if you happen to save your masking tape pieces from earlier from holding the clear vinyl down, you can reuse those to help hold. I'm going to bring it over a little bit more. And then when you go and slide your hoop back in, just make sure that your back piece doesn't get accidentally tucked under. There we go. And so at this time, it's going to tack down this vinyl piece, and it has to be a vinyl or something that's not going to fray. You could use water resistant or waterproof canvas. I personally like to use vinyl for mine. So it's going to stitch down an outer circle and then an inner circle. The stitching is now finished for the outer cover for the ITA window. So we're going to pull this out and we're going to take it back over to the cut table. Now that we're back at the cut table, go ahead and remove your masking tape. And then remove your pins. Make sure you flip it over and pull your tape off the back. And we're going to undo the hoop. Undoing the hoop is just going to make doing the cutting a little bit easier on this part. Technically, yes, you could leave it in the hoop, but why make your cutting a little more difficult? So we'll start with the easy part. Take your scissors and make sure you're not going at a downward angle. You just want to go nice and easy horizontal. And then I'm using my other hand to help lift and pull that material away. And since it's on a nice even circle, I'm using the back part of my blade for my scissors to be able to cut this. And the cutting the inside can be a little bit tricky, so you have to be really careful when cutting through the top piece, because you don't want to cut too far, because then you could accidentally cut your clear vinyl. You could potentially cut threads underneath, especially because we have that design over the whole top. Other clear windows may not have the full design, some of them do. It just depends. So, and if you want to save this middle part to be able to use it for applique on something else, it is a nice size piece. So just kind of go over to a corner and kind of pinch it a little bit the best you can. You can use your little scissors and just kind of get in there just a little bit, kind of poke it. If you're not sure if you want to use your scissors, you could use like a seam ripper edge and just kind of do a little test cut. Okay, cool, I didn't get my clear vinyl. And this part's going to be a little bit harder because you can't really lift it up out of your way for a while. And then be very cautious. You don't want to be pressing all the way down up against the clear vinyl cutting, because then you could potentially run into your threads and cut them. So you're kind of almost lifting with your scissors and then using your other hand to help kind of like hold it down so it doesn't lift too far up and out of the way. That way when you're cutting, you don't accidentally cut something you don't want to, because then you're causing separating the layers a little bit more, giving yourself a little more clearance. And then when you can, go ahead and start pulling your material away. Or you can stick a hand inside or a finger inside to help give yourself some clearance. Now we got a nice size piece to be able to use for applique on something else. And then while you're looking at it, just go around, look for if something didn't get cut right. And then if you weren't worried about saving that piece, you could have started your cut in the middle, or your little pilot hole in the middle, and then worked your way to the outside. So whatever way you want to do it is totally up to you. Just doing some little touch-up cuts. And then what I'm doing is I'm bending the fabric or the material away from my little cover, my little window cover, just so I can get a little bit better separation and then get in there to be able to have a nice smooth cut so I don't accidentally cut my fabric. And you don't have to like crease it and pull it super hard, just an easy bend up out of the way. And then just because my material is a little on the fuzzier side, again, I'm just kind of folding the material back to kind of show that edge of the vinyl a little bit better, so I get more of a direct access to it. And then just taking the lighter around it. And then if you want to go to the inside, just be very careful going to the inside. You don't want to leave your letter on it for too long because you could completely melt your clear vinyl, and that would kind of ruin the project. Oop, as I breathe. Alright, and there's our ITA window. So that part's completely finished, and so now we just need to figure out which side we want the top to be. So I'm going to put the black to the darker, to the, I guess, Wednesday's side. And then, so that's the side that I'm going to be using for that direction. Okay, now that the ITA window is finished, we're going to go ahead and start cutting the pocket or the inside for the pocket that you're going to be able to see. And so we'll do the one with the white fabric and then one with the colorful waterproof canvas from Fabric Therapy. Okay, I'll see you back on my other cut table. Okay, we're at my big cut table now, and so I'm just going to trim the sides down just a little bit, just because I did keep the selvage edge on this one. I'm not cutting off too much, just a little bit. Because especially once we actually get this modified front sewn to the body of the front of the backpack, then we can really trim down the front and it's not that big of a deal. Just trimming off a little bit of excess. So I already went ahead and cut my little accent piece, and so the accent piece will be going above, so the zipper will go here, then the accent piece, and then the inside of the slip pocket will then be sewn to the top of the accent piece, and then it will go onto the back. So it doesn't really matter which material you use for that. You could just use cotton woven, canvas, completely choice preference on that one. But right now we are going to prep the pretty stuff that we're going to see on the inside of this. Okay. And because we're cutting two different fabrics for it and then sewing them together to be able to make the larger piece to be able to be the back of the zipper pocket. So technically, normally this would be your front exterior. This is the inner side of your zipper pocket. So it's already technically attached to the back of this. So you don't have to cut that piece. So that part, this is where it can get a little complicated and confusing of like, well, where's this, where's that? I know I got myself confused a few times when I was first trying to do these and figure these out. But so that's the inside of the pocket. So we're technically doing the back of the pocket. And for the two sides, you're going to cut them 6 inches wide by 7.5 inches tall. And I'll repeat that again. You're going to be cutting two. So you're going to be cutting one from white fabric, or your choice of your color. And this is just a scrap piece. I actually have to cut it out. And then another one of your colorful material that you're using. This is just kind of like a sparkly cotton woven that I just got from like Joann's. I've had it for, oh my gosh, I don't even know how long I've had it. It's been sitting on my fabric shelf. And then this is waterproof canvas from Fabric Therapy. I love the colors. It's just so pretty. So you will need to cut one from each. And again, those sizes are 6 inches wide, 7.5 inches tall. Okay. And we're going to be sewing those together at a 3/8 inch seam allowance. And I'll repeat that again when we get to the sewing machine. So go ahead and grab whichever fabric you want to do, like a light gray. You could do a white. Completely your preference. I chose white because then it would show off the design of the window a little bit better. And then plus usually through a window it's like you see blue, but I didn't really want to do blue because then it's color. So, I don't know. Completely your choice. And I'm going to use my pretty sparkly ruler that I got from, it was part of the, I think it was the summer kit. It's the More Me Know box, and it had that really cool bag. Like, yeah, the one with More Me Know. Anyway, it's just pretty. I like it. It's easy to work with because it's smaller, and it is 8 inches, so it makes it really easy. And it is already 6 inches, so it works out practically perfect when cutting these little pockets. So because this is a non-directional print, it really doesn't matter how I cut it. So I'm just going to hold that, find my and then because it's a waterproof canvas versus a cotton woven, I am going to add a little bit of interfacing on the back of it so it's roughly about the same-ish thickness. It definitely won't be, but it'll be close. So set that aside, and I'm going to roll my fabric back up. I just have I have open shelves behind me, and then I just use this foam board from the Dollar Tree, and then I cut it down to the height and width that I want that will fit my shelf. And then I just use these little small clips, and then it holds my fabric. So I have an entire wall of my cotton woven and canvases that are like that, and it just makes it really pretty, and it's easier to find stuff. Okay, now let's bring over the pretty fabric. And I want to have some of this. Ooh, I like this one. But will it be? Yeah, okay. Sorry, talking to myself, trying to figure out which direction I want. Because I want to be able to see like the pinks. Because if I do it that way, I'm not going to see the pinks and the pretty colors. So it's like I really want to get see the variety of the colors in there. So yeah, I'm gonna go that direction. And so again, So it's 7.5 inches tall, 6 inches wide. I just had my, there it is. I lose my stuff. So this is kind of going to give you the idea of what it's going to look like. And I am liking, because I can see the pretty colors. Do I want to spin it? No, because then I'm going to get more. Ooh, but do I want that way? Ooh, which way? Do I want that one? There's more colors. Yeah, I'm going to go that way because I like all the colors. It's really pretty. Okay, so now that we have our two pieces, we're going to go over to our sewing machine and we are going to, oh wait, before, I'm going to add some interfacing to the back of the white material, and then we're going to go over to the sewing machine and then we'll sew this at a 3/8 inch seam allowance, and then you're going to open the seam and then we'll top stitch down each side. And then for this one I did 2 color threads on my first one. I did white on the white, of course, and then I didn't want to do the white on this because I didn't want it to show too much. And then I did a gray on it, and it didn't show up too bad. It blended fairly well. I might try to do like a blue because there's a lot of blue over here, so I'm gonna try a blue this time just to help see if it'll blend a little bit more. Okay, I'm gonna go get this interface and I'll see you at the sewing machine. I have my white material, it's interfaced with some SF101, and then I have my waterproof canvas facing the direction that I wanted to have. So again, we're going to be stitching this together at a 3/8 seam allowance. And I'm doing this on my domestic. And then for this part, you're just going to want to, you can kind of iron the waterproof canvas, but not really. This is where having one of those seam rollers would come in handy. So just use your fingers, press your seam open. And then since I still have my white thread in there, I'm going to be top stitching the white side of the fabric down at a 1/8 seam allowance. And then I'm using my fingers on the back side. I'll show you on the back side. So I'm keeping my fingers here, and then also on top. This hand will help keep it in line, and then my bottom hand is right on the seam, and it's keeping that seam spread apart. So that way I don't accidentally top stitch it the wrong way. Snip that little thread off. Alright, and since I'm going to do blue for the other side, I'm going to switch out my thread colors real quick. And then again, I am just top stitching this side down at a 1/8 seam allowance. And even though the other side is already stitched down, I'm still keeping my hand on the underside just to make sure that it stays where I want it to be. I'm just gonna snip off my little extra long, or my longer threads. Alright, we're getting there. So this is kind of the idea of what we're looking at. Looks pretty darn good. Alright, so then the next part will be the fun part. And we're gonna go ahead and grab our zipper. Sorry, long threads on the side. We're gonna grab our zipper, and so we can definitely trim this one down, but in the meantime, I'm just gonna leave it alone. So we're gonna grab the zipper, and again, that's gonna be at 10.5 inches, and we're going to, oh, I left this on. You can separate or take the tearaway off in between the layers. Completely forgot about that. That way, if you forget it, then you could potentially hear like the crinkle from it as if your bag or whatever you're making moves, it can make that crinkle noise. So to save us from that, oh, I want the black on that side. So we can now kind of like cut this down better to true size, especially the height. The width is okay to be a little bit larger than it needs to be, but you want to make sure that you are keeping your height, because then you want to distribute your ITA window centered in the overall height of your pocket. Okay. So I went back and I cut my design down to 6 3/4 inch. It's not exactly centered. I did leave probably a little bit more, like a skosh more towards the top just for the zipper, but not a lot more. So go ahead and cut your zipper. You're gonna cut it down to 10.5 inches. I'm using a number 5 zipper. And I'm using this zipper tape from, it's Dream Big, and it is their Villain tape. I love the sheen that it gives off. It's so pretty. And because this is wider than 10.5 inches, you can't really just like line it up with an edge. But you can find the center instead of you making a snip. I need to get a new Sharpie. Mine's bleeding. I'm just making little marks with the Sharpie. The Sharpie helps me see the middle just because it's got a little bit of a sheen to it. A little bit easier to see. And then go ahead and mark the middle, but my middles are already marked since it's on the stripe. But just because, I will go ahead and just mark them anyway. And then also mark the center for the inside for the waterproof canvas, both top and bottom. And this one's kind of already marked just because, well, it's on the seam, so it makes it easy. All right, so we'll set the pretty stuff set aside for a moment. And now we're going to line up the middle of our zipper with the middle of only the front part. So we don't want to mess with the waterproof canvas on the inside just yet. And then just clip that down in place. Okay. And then make sure when you go to sew it on, oh, I need to change my thread color now that I think about it. Go back to black. And I'll change my bottom. that's going. So we're going to stitch down just the top part at a 3/8 inch seam allowance. And then just make sure that the waterproof canvas is tucked back and out of the way. You don't want to accidentally sew that down. Okay, and then so then your excess, your seam, the excess is going to be, let's see if I can get it in the camera. It's going to face downward to the middle. Okay. And at this point you can use double-sided stick tape. It's completely your preference. And then just be careful when you are folding it under, you're not yanking on it too hard, because then you don't want to pull it too much, because then you don't want to get your zipper kind of get a little wonky. So on the back, I think I got all the fuzzies. Oh, let me trim up some of those threads. And do a little lighter on it. Okay. So this is where it gets a little tricky. And then you can totally use double-sided stick tape for this if you want. You would just put it along the edge. There's not a whole lot of real estate to work with. But you want to, let's see if I can lighten that up for you. You see a little better? So you want, your goal is to fold the top and the back to be the same. And then if you can squish down, you might squish your zipper just a little bit, but it can help hold everything in place, just in case if you don't have double-sided stick tape or you're out of it. Okay. And then you'll be able to feel through like where your back pieces versus your front. So you don't want to have it too high because you don't want it to interfere with your zipper, but you don't want it too low that you miss it when you go to top stitch the front. And this gets a little tricky. Okay, if you were using, because mine is more of like a canvasy material that can fray, if you're using a material that wasn't a fraying material, I'm just going to undo this for a second. You would just stitch everything down together through the front and the back, and then rotate it downward. And then as long as it wasn't showing through your window, you're fine. But because I'm using a frayable material, I'm going to be tucking it down on the inside. The other option you can do, if you don't want to do the tuck, when you stitch this all the way down, then after you stitch it, peel back your zipper, peel back your lining, and then cut your fraying material, so your exterior, cut that down, but just be careful not to cut the back, not to cut the zipper, and cut that out of the way. And then when you fold it over to top stitch, and when you top stitch it, it gets hidden and kind of sucked into that stitch line, so then you don't have any of the frayable material showing on the inside potentially, so you won't get that. So that is another alternative method to doing it from doing it like this, which I'm very tempted to do, because that would be a lot easier, but then the inside, I don't know, the inside will look nicer with the inside or the back part kind of folded over. But it is all personal preference of which one you'd like to do. I'm gonna give this one a try. I did the other one where I just sewed everything together and then cut that one part out. I did that on my first one. It was pretty easy. It was, well, pretty easy. It was a lot easier than this. But I want to try another method just in case, because not everybody does things the same way and not everybody learns the same way. So I just wanted to give options for everybody. Okay, so just checking the front again, make sure it's pretty. So if the inside is a tiny bit wonky, it's okay, but we don't want the front to get a little wonky. Okay. All right, here we go. And so we are going to be top stitching this seam closed at 1/8 of an inch. Okay. All right. It's not the straightest on the inside, but it's the inside. As long as the outside looks pretty, I'm happy. Okay, so now that that part is finished, we will now move on to adding the inner pocket. So the still nice thing about this is that you can still use the clear window to then line up your fabric or the inside of the pocket. Okay. So I'm just going to baste stitch this one down, because then that's where the accent piece will go. Alright, looking good so far. Alright, now where did I leave my accent piece? It looks like I left my accent piece in the big other room, so I'm going to go grab that and I'll be right back. Okay, got my accent piece. I'm going to go ahead and find the center of this. And this is the one with the pretty sides together I will stitch down. So clipping the centers with the centers. And this is what I will stitch down at a 3/8 seam allowance. So just to make sure when I fold it up, yep, okay. Just catch myself. Okay, and then I'm going to press it upwards with the seam, the excess material still facing upward. And then I'm going to, a seam roller would be really convenient to kind of press this down, but I'm just going to use my hands. And then top stitch this at a 1/8 seam allowance. Alright, we're getting there. It's looking pretty darn good. Alright, so now we'll go back to the cut table. If you wanted to cut these ahead of time and have everything ready to go, by all means. No, it shifted. If I lay it down, it's shifted. I don't like that. No. That's gonna bug me. Okay, well, I'm gonna undo this because I don't know if you can see, especially up here at the top, it's a little off. So I don't want it to be off because that'll bug me. And so I'm going to unsnip this. I'm going to re-stitch the back down and reapply this one. And I'll go cut the back piece of fabric for the back of the slip pocket. And then we'll come back to the stitch table and we'll sew on the back of the slip pocket. Okay, I'm in the back cut room now. And I'm going to be cutting the, I guess, liner of the slip pocket part. And so that is going to be 8.5 inches tall by 10.5 inches wide. Okay. And again, 8.5 inches tall, 10.5 inches wide. And I'm going big or go home with the stripes today. So I'm going to put this on the inside, and hopefully when I do the body of the backpack, or the front, which I'll cut out off video, I want them to line up. Wanting and doing are two separate things at this point for me. It's like, man, I keep messing up. Okay, so it's 8.5 inches tall. And it's definitely going to be wider than it needs to be, but then it gives me a little more wiggle room because of the stripes. So 8.5 inches tall. All right, hopefully I can get this to line up. I have my lining flap cut out, or my slip lining flap, lining for the slip pocket. So I'm just making sure that I am still doing black with the black stripe. I don't really want to do opposites. And since there are stripes and I'm wider than I need to be, I could go off of my little notch there at the top and the bottom, and as a backup, I will just clip that there just to be safe. But I'm going to also, when I lift my fabric, just kind of like follow the line, making sure that my fabric's lined up all the way down. And then I'm going to clip that in place. I don't need enough time. And then this time it's going to be stitched down at a 1/4 seam allowance. Yay! I really do need to get a seam roller. That'd be awesome. That'd be convenient. Alright, so go ahead and press your seam allowance up, and then we're going to roll this edge. And I'm just going to work from the middle and work outward. And even on the bottom, it still comes out lined up. Yay! Okay, looks good. And then go ahead and top stitch this at a 1/8 seam allowance. And because it is vinyl, I'm using a walking foot for mine. If you are also using your domestic, you can use a walking foot, a Teflon foot, or potentially if you have a foot that sticks, you could put some tissue paper over the top of it, over the top of your vinyl, and to help it not stick as much, hopefully. Yay, almost there. Just trimming up my long threads. Okay, and now I'm going to put on my zipper pull. Because eventually when I add it to, nope. I always forget my magnets. I always forget them. So, dang it, I wanted to do this beforehand. Since I already have my fabric sewn on, there's really nothing I can do about it. So let's just go ahead and make a mark. I'm using my rivet magnets. I just use this. This is when I can't get to it with my little crocodile hole puncher thingy. I just use one of those. Super convenient. And The rivet magnets are really easy to install and super convenient. Especially if you already have a little rivet press. You just need to get the dies for them. And I need a piece of decorative. So behind my magnets, I like to put a piece of Decovale Heavy, so I save my little Decovale scraps. And I need the hole punch for this one. No, I'll just use this one. It's all good. Did I get it? And then I'm just using a cheap Dollar Tree cutting board so that way I'm not hurting my table or my cutting mats. I learned that the hard way. I tend to learn things the hard way a lot, apparently. Okay, what am I doing? Okay. Nope. But I do want that one there. So normally you would do, when you have your back material not stitched down, you do like 1 1/4 or 1.25 inches down. But since I goofed and I seem to goof a lot, I'm just going to kind of make sure that it sits below that. So yeah, looks about good, so we'll just go there. Not doing anything. The perk of stripes. One perk. I already know where my center is. So I am doing it would be the male end, the part that has the little nub that sticks out on this one, because it'll help me line up for my other one. So stick that through, and then I do the shiny side of the Decovale on that end. And then put your cap on. And over to the press. Yay, I actually remembered my magnet. I'm just going to kind of put some clips around the outside. This is definitely larger than the body of the main panel will be. And this one is longer, so I'm gonna go ahead and just trim that off. I did trim off the inner pocket a little bit earlier, so that way it was the same as my exterior. This will just help me line up the bottom of it just a little bit better. Okay, now that I got all my pieces, the stripes definitely make this fairly easy to line up since I have so much excess on either side. I have more wiggle room. So I have my matched up. One of my puppies is over there stretching out on the dog bed and just making all sorts of silly noises. Silly girl. Okay, and the nice thing about having put the little side that has the little nub down, you can put a little bit of Sharpie on it and then press it, or just the fact of giving it some pressure, you should see a mark or a little indentation on the fabric. And if you can't see either one of those, I just kind of peek and lift it, or the other option is to actually put them together. Put this right side up so you're not angling it, so make it look how it's supposed to. And then you have the post that sticks down. Make sure it doesn't move. Lift up the side and then mark where your post goes in. And then once I found my post mark, I can pull the magnet side off, find my mark, give it a little, make a little hole, slide that through, add my piece of little Decoville shiny side to the fabric, add that, switch out my die pieces. And a nice press. Magnet. Yay! I have my magnet. Yay! Okay, so now I can go ahead, we don't need those, and add my zipper. Separate it a little bit. And then I don't quite, there aren't any fancy zipper pulls that mirror the show or the design just yet. It's still really new. I don't have any doubts that eventually we will see some custom zipper pulls out there. Yay! Okay. So I'm just using a simple pull. Right. And now I'm going to, from the back side, because this side is so long, I'm just going to stitch around, basting down the front slip pocket to the main body of the backpack. Before I flip it, I'm going to trim off my excess. And there we have it. We have a magnet slip pocket and a front ITA zipper pocket. So when we open it up, yay! Well, thank you for joining me for my tutorial on the ITA window and the modified front for the Lynn Sport mini backpack. I hope you enjoyed this. Go ahead, if you can, give me a thumbs up, like, subscribe. If you want to leave a comment, I'll be happy to respond to any questions you might have. Hope you have a great rest of your day. Thank you.